Alrighty, good afternoon. My name is Zach Olson, and this is a basic CAD tutorial using a couple very key important skills and just trying to get familiar with a couple of skills. Sorry to interrupt. Quick post-editing note. One, I would like to apologize for the occasional background noise. And two, something I forgot to mention in the video is when you are looking to cancel out of a tool, such as your rectangle sketch, your extrude, whatever, if there's no cancel button like on an extrude, if you go to an empty space in the work plane and you right click, and it'll give you an option to click cancel. So yep, and let's get back to the video. So in this tutorial today, I'm going to make a basic phone, or almost like a landline phone design, and feel free to please follow along. If not, you can watch it and go back and do it yourself. Follow along twice if you'd like. Yeah, so let's just get straight into it. So to start a sketch in CAD, so you go up here to the top left after you've created your file, your new part, and you're going to click Start a Sketch, and then you're going to select a plane to start your sketch on. It doesn't really make a difference when it comes to 2D sketching, but typically, just from the standpoint of your normal orientation of things, you're going to want to start on the XY plane. So we'll click that, it'll go blue, and then it'll pop us into something like this. So now we have all these tools up here, and that's what we're just going to start using to make our basic phone design. So what I'm going to start with is just a basic rectangle. So we're going to go up here, we're going to grab this tool, and we're just going to select a point, midpoint, whatever, it doesn't really make a difference, and you're just going to bring it up wherever. So, and then, now we have this basic rectangle, which is a certain size, which we don't really know. You kind of saw it when we were dragging out. You can see down in the bottom right where it shows the size, but we need to make that to the size that makes sense for our phone. So we're going to go up here, we're going to grab this tool, Dimension. You can also click D on the keyboard, but just so you can see, I'm going to grab Dimension, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab this line here, and we're going to drag it out, and it's going to come up with this number, and we're going to have to click, just left click, and it'll let you edit this dimension, or the size of this line. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to say 4.5 inches. Standard for Inventor is in inches, but it's adjustable. For today, we're just going to use that though. So we're going to make that 4.5, and then it's going to like disappear, because we have to remember we made that sketch really small at the start. So either we can scroll to move in and out, or we can just click this front and it will pop this sketch up for us. And so it's already made it to 4.5 inches, so that if you were to print it or anything, that's the size it would be. And then we're going to dimension this top edge here, and let's say 2.5. And we're going to throw that there. And then you have your rectangle. And then you obviously can't have a phone that's doesn't have any size to it, right? It has to be, you have to be able to hold it. So we're going to go to this 3D model tab in the top left here, and we're going to click Extrude. And we're going to have to grab this little corner here to back out so we can see. And it's going to pop up with this little guy here. And you can see if I adjust this distance, it's going to change how long the shape gets. But for now, we're just going to go with 1 inch. You can experiment with how you like of having it be behind the plane you're on, or half and half, or in front, whatever. It's not that big a deal. If you have multiple sketches, it's going to ask you to select a plane and their profile. Because we only have one sketch here, it's already here, and it's going to automatically select because it's the only thing it can be extruded. And then we're just going to click OK. So now we have just this basic box here that we're working with. Nothing crazy, nothing special. It's just a box. So now we're going to try to make that look like a phone. So to start with, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to use this tool right here called the fillet. And what the fillet does is it will round off square edges. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab this fillet. And then if you see, this is a size that's already on, 0.125. And then if you click a line, like here, it's going to curve itself to that distance. Obviously, we want it to be a little bigger because the phone is more tapered. It's at least at the back side, like a landline, it's going to go back. So we're going to, just for the back side, we're going to say 0.5. And that's going to do a decent amount of fillet there and make it round off. And then if we grab this edge, it'll do the same. And then this one. And, you know, we're going to do the bottom too. I was tempted to leave the bottom, but realistically, if it's on a charger, it's going to be not that wide at the bottom. So you're going to do that, and then you're just going to click OK. So now we have this curved back shape with still square front, but we can fix that. So in my mind, these are pretty flat usually, so we're just going to grab this fillet one more time. We're going to grab this top edge, and we don't need it to be 0.5. We're probably going to want it to be like 0.25. You can experiment with the sizes as you want to make it fit what you like. You do you. Figure out what you want to do, but we're just going to do that. So boom, now we have our, I suppose, standard phone-ish shape. So now, in my mind, we need a little display screen that shows you how many messages you have and how many missed phone calls, and then our little antenna, and then your buttons for 1 through 9 to make a phone call. So I'm going to work on the buttons and the screen first. So we're going to go, this is where it becomes different. So now you have this shape, right? And when you go to start a sketch, you can click on it, but then nothing happens, right? But then when you float over this, you can start a sketch not on a plane. You could go it from a plane, like when grabbing this origin key over here, and you could go whatever plane you want. Or you can just come over here and select a face, so that you're editing it on the face that the shape is. So go ahead and grab this, and we're gonna center it just with that front key. And now we can see it from the front, and we can sketch and extrude whatever onto here we want. So now, if we're going to do a screen, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a rectangle right here. That line is just from your fillet on the other side, so don't worry about that. Just be sure not to click it. And we're going to make our rectangle. And then that thing will go away. And now we need to dimension our rectangle again, right? Because we want to make sure it's a reasonable size, because nobody's going to have something that's 0.9635. So we're going to go 1, and we're going to make that. And that's really all the size we need. And the other thing you can do is, instead of dimensioning the size of this, you can grab the dimension of this and the edge of this extrusion, and you can bring it over here. And let's say we want to make this 0.1. It'll actually make this bigger because it's wanting to be 0.1 away. So we'll do that for the other side, for 0.1. And then for the top, with probably a little more, we'll do 0.15. And there we go. So now we have our basic sort of little display for it. And then, but obviously that's not going to be perfectly flush. You need to extrude it some, probably slightly negative with the glass. So that's where our next sort of skill comes in. So we're going to go back to 3D model, back to extrude, and this is going to pop up because that's the distance we've used. And obviously we don't want it to be an inch. We probably want it to be 0.01, just barely. And we don't want it to be positive. You can see that little edge there, it's coming at us. We don't want it to come at us, we want it to go back into the phone. So what we can do is we can, down here in Boolean, where the red square is instead of the blue, we can do cut, and it will bring it slightly backwards into the screen over here, so that it is slightly almost indented, if you will. So then we're gonna click OK on that, And now we have our basic phone shape and our little display area. Obviously there's nothing in it, but that's part of the sketch you can choose to do if you want to continue working on this. So now I think of two things. We need an antenna somewhere up here, and we need some buttons. So let's save the hardest one for last. Let's go back to our sketch. Let's start a new 2D sketch, and let's put it on this face right here. So now again we're back at this whole thing where we just made this, and we want to make 9 buttons for 1 through 9 when you're trying to make a phone call, right? That's what only thing that makes sense. So we need to, well, you can just do 4 lines if you'd like to make it a square. I just dimension it after I make a rectangle. So, and we're actually going to do something different though. We're going to take this line tool, and right before we do anything, we're going to find the center point of this line, which you can find by getting the little green dot, right? And we're going to grab that, and we're going to go all the way down, keeping it snapped to the straight, all the way down to this green dot, and now we have this weird center line. And that center line is going to come in handy in a little bit, but that we don't need to touch on that quite yet. So now we're just going to make our boxes, and if we go somewhere here, we're just going to make the boxes first, and then we will adjust them to our size needs later. So we're going to make these 3 boxes, anywhere really, it just somewhat close to make it move less, and there we go. Now we have our regular boxes. We want them all to be the same size and the same distance apart though. So like we've seen, we go to dimension, and we make this dimension, let's say 0.5. And now it's 0.5 tall, but we want it to be a square. So we'll just grab these 2. So that's the one we've already done, right? And then we'll grab the 2 tall ones, and it'll bring it out here, and we'll go to 0.5. Right, so now we have this button here. And once we have this button, we can either dimension these just like that, which we'll do for this side, for this one here. So we'll go dimension to 0.5, and they might overlap for a second, but we can move that if they do. They don't, which is great. Whoops, wrong one. Back to dimension, and we do these 2 to 0.5. Okay, so and the other thing we can do is we can select this line without the dimension, right click, and click delete. Why are we deleting? You'll see in a second. So we're going to delete this, and zoom in, make sure we don't grab the dimension, delete that, and instead of making a 3rd button just out of randomness, we're going to go up here and grab this copy tool. What this copy tool does is select and then base point. So we can either drag click or select each line. We're going to drag click, grab this box, and we're going to select the base point up here, and you're just going to select any point, and then if you bring it down, it will copy it halfway over there. So now we have our 3rd box, and it's already dimensioned for us. And speaking of which, we have to make sure this guy's good. Oh, it is. Perfect. So now we need to make them equal distance apart, because you wouldn't have them randomly placed. So we're going to go and make them all the same distance apart. I think I'm going to do 0.4 from each other. So we're going to go dimension, and we're going to go 0.4, and that's going to move up there, but that's okay. We can move that later. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make this dimension. So we're going to go here, and we're going to grab this one because we want it to be equal distance. So that's way too big, right? We want it to be closer to the bottom. So we're going to go 0.4. And then we're going to dimension this to this. These are already made squares, so we're just going to go 0.4, and it'll bring it down. And then we're going to dimension this one, which is weirdly already made, and we're going to go 0.4. Boom. Now we have our 3 buttons equal distance apart, and then if you check this dimension here, it'll already be 0.4, and it'll over-constrain because that's the whole distance of the sketch. So now if we want to make our middle buttons, we're going to go like this. And we're going to go line, and we're just going to find it where it's the dotted line so it's equivalent, just so we don't have to dimension that one extra thing. And we're going to make it like this and like this. And all we're going to do is make one of these, because like we've used that copy tool, we can dimension this guy to 0.25, so it's half a button, right? And then dimension this guy, make sure it's 0.4. It is, so that's perfect. And then we're gonna use our copy tool here. We're gonna go select, 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 base point, and here. And we're just gonna bring this one down and lock it in with that one, and down and lock it in with that one. And boom. So now we have half of this, and that's where this line comes back in. There's another tool. And so we're going to go up here, and we're going to grab mirror in the top, like left middle next to dimension here. Grab this mirror tool, and we can select all of these. And then these are, they're funky because they don't like to select with that other line, so we're just going to select them individually. It's not terribly difficult. And then we're going to select the mirror line and click the center line here. And then once I click apply, boom. Now we have all of our buttons, and we only had to make 3.5, or I suppose 4.5 total. So now we can, even if we don't like this, we can grab this line and we can click delete. Now we have all our buttons, and they're all perfectly dimensioned because we mirrored it, and we never had to even select all of them. Okay, so now we're going to make them the buttons, right? Because again, they're not flat to the face, just like the screen. But this time they're going to be positive. Not a lot, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to select all these. And we'll just leave it at 0.01. There's just going to be slightly up thing to push for your button so that you can select what numbers you want. So then we're just going to click OK. And boom. Now we have our basic design. It almost looks like a calculator, but that's going to work. And then now, last thing, we have to make our antenna, because depending on the landline you have, yes, it does happen without them, but we're going to have to make the antenna, because that's another important skill. Actually, a couple important skills. But so what we're going to do is we'll go out here just so we can see everything. And you're thinking, probably, you start a sketch and you start it up there. But if you start it on top of this face right here, you can't draw towards you, right? You have to draw side to side. So you have to create a plane that fits. And this XY plane that we drew on is on the back of the figure. So you can't use that, because otherwise it won't draw close, it won't sketch close to the figure. It'll be floating in the air, basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to 3D model, and we're going to go to plane, and we're going to do offset from plane. And when you go offset from plane, you're going to go select this XY plane that you've had, and you're going to make it the distance so that it's halfway between your figure. And I think it's 0.5, excuse me. Yeah, so that now, if we go over here, you can see that this little line runs straight through the center of our phone. And we may even want to make it a little more because of our fillets. It's like there. So we'll make it 0.6, and we'll select. And then we're going to start a sketch on that offset plane, our work plane number 1. And when we do that, we are now left, not like that, we're going to do like on the front, and we're now left with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our straight up line for our antenna, and we'll make it probably, I don't know, we got to zoom out a little bit. We'll make it 1.5 inches maybe. So we're going to go dimension, just the line, and we're going to go 1.5. And then we don't want it to be a straight up post, right? It's going to be a little tapered. It's going to get smaller towards the top, just because that's, I suppose, style. I'm not quite sure why they do it, but they're not straight. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make this line. It doesn't really matter the distance because we're just practicing here. And we're going to make it a certain ways apart. And we're going to not have this line be straight. We're going to go angled, and then it'll snap to the top. And we're going to do that. And we're going to cancel this. And then we're going to make the line on top here to fill it so it's not, fill the hole so it's not thing. And then we're going to go to 3D model. And we're going to click revolve. This is a new tool. And we're going to, it says select profile and select axis. Conveniently, it has already selected our profile for us. You can see the blue highlight here in one profile. And we're going to select axis, and then the blue line goes underneath. And we're going to select this line. And while that is big, you can make it smaller. That was silly of me, but now we have our antenna. And boom. So the last thing I want to do is go over here and click this work plane and right click, just because you can see it in the middle here and it's kind of annoying. So we're going to go down to visibility and we're just going to click that, and that plane will go away. And there it is. We have our basic phone design with our curved back and our flat bottom for the charging and our antenna and display and buttons and everything. So, I mean, that was a fairly basic overview of some skills, 2D sketching, extruding, revolving, fillet, mirror, copy, things like that. So, yeah, that's kind of the basic tutorial here. Now, I'm sure I can tell you in person, but we're going to have you figure out, I'm going to say 2 or 3 sketches for you that use all of these skills that you come up with, because I want to see you make them yourself and get creative with it and have fun with it and not be doing things from textbooks and things that you have to do. So there's that, and yeah, thank you for listening and have a great day.